Hi ladies and gentlemen, I thought I'd do a short video. Of course I always say they're short and then they turn out to be long. But I wanted to thank those of you who have offered your heartfelt concern that I get better. I'm still a little bit under the weather, but things are improving and I want to thank you for that. But what I really want to talk about today are some issues that I think are really important to us. The first is that, and you know I don't do this from a dogmatic point of view, but from, again, what's in your heart. It appears that things are changing at the subatomic level. You know, we know about quantum mechanics, quantum physics, things like that. We know about the effects of photons. You know, we all know about photosynthesis in plants. The importance of carbon dioxide in that process, along with the light, the photons. But we really haven't understood until lately that maybe there are some things about human beings and light. You know, if you look in the scriptures, Jesus called himself the light of truth, right? And there's a reason for that, I think. Without going into a lot of detail on philosophy or the scientific studies or those types of things, much of which is not being done here in the U.S., but elsewhere, because there's not money in it, it suggests that people are more independent, that they are self-determining, that they have powers that those who want to have control don't want the public to know about, don't want people to wake up to. But that gets into some very difficult things to talk about, especially in the short time that we have here. So I'm just going to bring it down to a real basic level. You've heard about the scientist who, the Japanese scientist who did a study on water and on ice, water crystals, those types of things, and exposed the water to feelings of love and compassion and how they develop very beautiful crystals, or, you know, the opposite feeling, hate, discontent, things like that, and the water took on some other rather grotesque features. Well, water is a spiritual substance, as I've talked about in a couple of my videos. And of course, we're made up mostly of water. In the Bible, the heavens are called Hashemayim, which really means the waters. But that goes back to quantum mechanics and why that was said. The ether of the alchemists and Isaac Newton and people like that permeates all things. But be that as it may, the bottom line here is that, you know, we can continue with our desire for war and greed, even on a small scale. Even a friend of mine calls like trying to get 2 cars ahead in heavy traffic for really no other reason than just petty greed. And petty greed is a really good term. I like that, because even that's a problem, because it's a manifestation of other things that can go bad. So we have all of these things. We believe we can get more by warring or by competition and by beating somebody else out. Not that there isn't some room for, you know, some of those things under certain necessary conditions, which I don't really want to go into here now. What I really want to concentrate on is the love portion of it, because a division is coming. Actually, it is already here. And I'm going to present some information here in just a minute, and you'll all recognize that it's nothing new, but I'm going to give you a slightly different idea of it. We have forces here in the world. Remember, I've talked about that this battle that we're now engaged in isn't just going to be a physical war. It's on a spiritual level, this dividing of evil and good, of life and death, of slavery, of freedom. And that's really what's going on here. And if we're on the positive side, and of course I guess that would depend on your point of view, who you select as your leaders, so to speak, will decide whether or not you're on the good side. But I think for semantic reasons, for what we're talking about here, I think we all know what's good, what has to do with life, what has to do with liberty, as opposed to evil and death and slavery. I think we can, at least at this point of the conversation, agree that we understand what those terms mean. So we have these two great warring factions. And they've always been here, but right now it's at a crescendo where it's really dangerous. And what's even most dangerous is, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his own soul? So we're going to hopefully turn from this greed, this murder for gain, this thievery, this warring based on very nefarious and nebulous reasons, and stand for truth and honor and love and liberty. Because I'll tell you something. Some of the experiments that have come out show that there is a tie-in of our DNA, actually all DNA, but particularly in humans, with the forces of the universe, with this intelligent designer, with this master consciousness that you'd call God. And again, I'm talking in broad terms here because I want to bring everybody in on this. And I want to talk dogma, I want to talk heart, as I always do. We must proceed with as much love in our hearts as we can. We must embrace love. And I don't mean that in just philosophical or rhetorical terms. I mean in reality. It's happening to a lot of us anyway, where we're selecting that. And it's causing us to become outcasts in some regards. But better that than to take part in the terrible things that are being done by the people that believe in the other side. So what I'm saying is this, that there is a change here, and I've talked to some of my friends about this. We've done some study on it, and there is apparently something happening in the cosmos, especially in our local area here in the galaxy at this point. And this really sounds really far out, New Age, I realize this, but remember, I really come from a scientific point of view, and apply that science. True science and true spirituality are really the same thing, because they both have to do with what? What is the truth? So apparently there is this change going on, and if you have love in your heart, you're able to withstand the heat that's generated in you. Well, let me put it to you this way. If you have love in your heart and your DNA handles these energies that are coming in now to the earth from the sun and from this part of the galaxy, the photons, those types of things, then you're on the right frequency, the love frequency, like with the water, and you resonate peacefully with it. Okay? But if you're on the evil side, there is a resistance to that light. And what does it cause? What do you do with an electric circuit when you increase resistance? It does what? It produces heat. Does that sound familiar? The burning of the last days, of the tares, of the wicked. I think you can see where I'm going with this. Now, I'm not saying that, we have to put away all of our little tiny, disagreements about things and all that. It's what's in your heart, how you view someone else, whether with love or with hate, disdain, those types of things. And I always go back to this, of course. You know how I feel about promulgating homosexuality, because I know that detrimental, okay? But I don't hate the homosexual. Do you understand? So, what we need to do, stand for right, stand for truth, stand for morality, stand for decency. Withdraw from the world, withdraw from the fear-mongering, the hate. Am I a fear-monger by warning you? No. No, there is a difference. You know, today on a program, I don't watch TV very much, but I saw this Call of Duty coming out again now with all this murder and mayhem and, you know, killing and war and how it's glorified. There is no glory in war, ladies and gentlemen. And you really don't want to find out that I speak the truth in that. You just as soon avoid that one if you can. Love really is the way. I don't mean we have to be stupid or put down our defenses. You know, I believe in personal self-defense, even in community self-defense against encroachments by criminals or tyrants. Of course I do. But we need to resonate. We need to allow this love in us to grow further so that we can absorb this light, these photons, this energy of truth, this change in our DNA to the better, so that our hearts are open to it. An open heart, open to it. Because if we close it and we don't have love, then we are causing this change, this energy that is coming in to involve a resistance in us, which will build up heat in us and destroy us. I know this sounds crazy, but I've talked with some friends about this who've been studying this for a while, and I can see where this could be the big change that is coming shortly. And really we're involved with it right now. Now, I said I was going to show you something that would lend credence to that. You know, we had the Patriot Act, and it's not patriotic. We had the Affordable Care Act, and it's not affordable. You get my drift. They call it these things, and it never is that. It's always the opposite. Well, you know, we've had these chemtrails for a long time, and a lot of you are very into that. You understand what they are. You know that they have aluminum in them, barium, you know, all these really poisonous substances. And it's bad for the soil, it's bad for the birds, the bees, it's bad for humans, it's bad for life in general. It causes problems with gardens, things like that. But we're told that it's geoengineering for the purpose of reversing global warming. Well, I got to thinking, and there's some other people, this isn't just original with me, I'm just putting it together in a slightly different way. What if they say they're combating global warming, when in reality what they want to do is to warm everything? Now, what's the point of that? Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I want to go that far yet, but I will say this. I'm going to show you a picture here, okay? Where I am, there was significant chemtrail activity within a few hours. These are not contrails. These are not condensation trails. As a matter of fact, in the picture, you probably won't be able to see it because I took it with my phone my camera phone. It doesn't have a lot of resolution, but there were other jets at the same altitude as these planes that were spraying these chemtrails. And these other planes, there were only 2 or 3 of them, had normal contrails that, you know, were maybe a mile long, something like that, and dissipated within a minute or less. So it wasn't the atmospheric conditions that were causing these strange occurrences. These were chemtrails. These were jets spraying, whether through the fuel or through outside aerosol dispensers, I don't know, but a chemical into the atmosphere. What did it do? Well, the picture I'm going to show you is just going to show the chemtrails, but these things spread out and became a huge cloud that, what do? Reflect light back out into space. It lessens the absorption here on the ground of photons, of light. What if these efforts are being made by those who have evil in their hearts because The children of darkness are wiser than the children of light, in that their plans are long range and diabolical. And what if they know that this change in the universe, in the earth, in our cosmos, in our local area of the galaxy here, or maybe even bigger than that, what if they know that this change is coming and they're trying to prevent you, number one, from getting the light that will help you to change if you have love in your heart? But more importantly, what if they're trying to prevent themselves from being damaged because they have a resistance in their heart and they will burn up? Crazy, I know, isn't it? It sounds crazy. But I will tell you, some things have happened to me within the last 2 to 3 weeks that I now consider that it's not as far-fetched as I thought. It's given me a whole different view on what the rapture that most Christians talk about might be. But more importantly, how things fit in the scriptures as far as love and hate. So here, let me show you this picture. This is the chemtrail activity. I want you to see this. So here's what those chemtrails looked like that day. Now, I want to hasten to add here that there were other jets at the same altitude as the jets that were spraying these trails, and that had the normal contrails, condensation trails. Not many of them, 1 or 2, 3 maybe, out of all of these that were spraying the chemtrails that last longer. And of course the contrails last for just the condensation trails last for just a few seconds, a minute at the most, and they're not very long. These chemtrails that they were spraying lasted, well, virtually all day and spread out and became a huge cloud cover over the area that day. Now, wasn't that amazing? Now imagine all of that spreading out over a period of about an hour and forming one huge cloud. It dimmed the light from the sun substantially. You can actually see it in that picture as it's starting, where the sun is getting very hazy. Well, it didn't totally disappear, but wow, I mean, it was like, shadows everywhere. What were they doing at that point in time? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the actual target area was, but it certainly affected where I am here. So I think that that's a possibility on what these chemtrails are, at least a contributing idea of why they use them. So let love flow through you. Give it freely. I'm not saying you can't reprove people when they do something wrong, but afterwards show an increase in love to them so that they know that you don't have any animosity towards them. You might not like what they do, but you love them. And that's hard to do, but I think we need to be there if we're going to be on the right side of this thing that's coming, if we don't want to be burned up by the resistance in our heart, in our DNA from these increasing photon levels. I'd like you to do me a favor also. You know I like Isaiah, and I was going to read some of this tonight, but I'm being too long here. I've told you about Isaiah 28 before. I'd like you to read Isaiah 28 again, but also 29 and 30, so chapters 28, 29, and 30. And in chapter 30, I'd like you to pay particular attention to verses 9 through 13. Will you do that for me? I'd appreciate it if you would. Okay, real quick mention on, I sent some information to a lot of friends of mine about this purging of officers out of the military, not just generals, okay, and what that may mean. I have a link below, you'll see it in the description box, about, it's from WorldNet Daily, and it's about the generals that have been purged. I'd like you to look at that video, or that article if you would. It's a little long, but it basically says all that I've been saying for a long time, and now we are having retired generals speak up. Notice they're not being able to talk to the mainstream media because they're controlled, the mainstream media is. They're having to go to other places and voice their concerns. And these are the concerns that I've had. So I'm in very good company, along with people that they don't mention, Captain Histolo and Lieutenant Lawrence and Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, people like that. So please go look at that we're really concerned. I'm not as concerned about the U.S. military backing off of fighting. I mean, being ready to fight is one thing, but seeking fights is something else. And so I'm not really much for that. But what I am for is discovering why these generals who would refuse the litmus test of firing on Americans or setting up false flags or whatever are being released. And you'll see some of that concern in this article, and I'd like you to read that. So the link is below in the description box. I want to give a little thank you to a user named Plasma Burns. He put out a video, or she, I'm not sure which it is, on the Boston bombing theatrics. The link is also below. I'm not saying that all the people that were hurt at the Boston bombing were actors. I'm not certain that that's true, but there have been a lot of videos and camera pictures, stills, that the government was not able to confiscate that are showing that some very odd things were going on there, that there were actors. You know how I feel about the guy in the wheelchair who supposedly had both legs blown off. You don't get wheeled off in a wheelchair when you have your legs blown off. You just don't do that. You'll die of shock. And there were a lot of other things that were going on, and this Plasma Burns goes into it in really good detail, and I'd like you to watch that link if you would. Okay, of course Obamacare is the big thing right now. I'm not sure if this is a planned disaster or if it's just incompetence. I really don't know. There are people arguing both sides. Either way, it's a bad deal. It's showing that government doesn't solve problems. It creates more problems than it ever solves. The Founding Fathers wanted limited government, the people to hold all the power. And now we have a president telling Congress, who really represents the people more than the president does, that their actions don't matter. And I know they're slow sometimes, and I don't have any respect for Congress either, but that's because most of them have become turncoat traitors as far as I'm concerned. They deny their oath of office, and they do things that are illegal and unconstitutional all the time. But as far as the Obamacare thing, a lot of people have been exempted from that. Major corporations have been exempted from it. Certainly Congress has, the president has, the White House staff, people like that. There's a principle in the Constitution that says that there will be no title of nobility given out to anyone. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean you have to be called by a name like Knight or something like that? No. It can be that, but it also means that all people are subject to the same laws, that there are no exemptions. So they're passing laws that violate the Constitution right at the beginning, right at the start. You cannot give a title of nobility. There is equal protection under the law, and they have fomented a system of nobility in this country. People who are exempted from the laws that you and I are required to obey. That is unconstitutional. We shouldn't even have to have a law introduced into Congress, which one senator is apparently doing, that would require everyone in the government to obey the same laws that they inflict on everyone else. That should already be the case. The fact that we even have to do that is absurd. But I wanted to bring that up because it was something that I saw that caused me a little time to reflect. All right, and I'd like to also mention that Fukushima hasn't gone away. As a matter of fact, it's getting worse by the day. I guess radiation has now reached the coast of Hawaii. A large debris field from the tsunami is about ready to make landfall on the west coast, and radiation levels have gone up in the northern hemisphere because of Fukushima, but particularly in the United States along the west coast and certain other areas as you head east across the continent. There are probably no easy answers on Fukushima at this point, but I think what we can realize here, at the very least, is that this nuclear power business is a dangerous situation. Remember, Einstein said using nuclear energy to boil water is crazy, or something to that effect. Ludicrous, lunacy, something like that. It's just not a good idea. And yet we have all these people that want to push nuclear power for energy. There are other ways of doing this, of obtaining energy. And really, there are free energy ways out there. But of course, they don't want you to have those, because then you're not under their grid control. But anyway, Fukushima is a problem. It's getting worse. And if there is another explosion at that Mach 4 reactor, or if any of those fuel rods come into contact with each other in the wrong circumstances, there could be another catastrophe of major proportions. And I don't even want to think about what those are right now, but just be aware that that is going on, and keep your eyes on the horizon on that one. I wasn't going to mention this, but I think I will. I was really surprised that the people in New York and Virginia elected people to positions in the political realm that support Obama. Do you see what's happening here? We're really being divided up as a country on these issues. These issues are just tearing us apart. So, again, other reasons to be concerned about DHS getting ready. All of the preparations that they're making, as Patrick Henry said in his speech. Who's the enemy that they're getting all this ready for? It's us. There is no other. Okay, so this division in the country is going on. We're still seeing secessionist movements getting more heated all the time in Colorado and California, as far as counties pulling away from the states that they're in at this point, Oregon. But we also see divisions around at the state level. Texas saying they're not going to enforce Obamacare. California saying, surprisingly, they're not going to allow enforcement of the NDAA, detention of citizens. So things are really being divided up, and this Obamacare thing is going to be even more devastating as it goes along. So I don't think that anything that I've talked about has been outlandish too far. It's the best analysis that we can make given the circumstances, the evidence, be it circumstantial or real evidence. It's there, and we need to be aware of it. So I'll just end on this, what I started the video with. It really is time to allow love to take hold of your heart, because if you don't, then these changes that are coming may be detrimental to you, of course to others as well. But I want to see as many people as possible not to be caught up in this destructive behavior that we see around the world, especially in the United States. Try to keep love in your hearts. Try to come from, on everything that you're confronted with, try to come from a position of love and respect. And if you can hold that in your heart during these difficult times, then you'll make it to the other side. You won't have resistance in your DNA or in your heart that will cause you to burn up. You won't have to worry about chemtrails above you that will deflect the photon light. You won't have to worry about going into lead-lined houses, which some of the elite are doing, or putting yourself deep in the earth, at least not, as far as this change is occurring. There might be other reasons to go, but not that one. Well, I've rambled on a little bit. Thank you for your time, and I'll probably see you again sometime.